When hope fades, faith begins to rise. This idea carries a depth that many only understand after experiencing moments where everything else seems to collapse. Human beings naturally attach themselves to visible means, people, plans, resources, and expectations. We build our sense of stability on what we can control or predict. But when those things begin to fall apart, when carefully laid plans fail, when trusted people walk away, and when outcomes turn against us, something profound begins to shift within the heart. At first, it feels like loss of control, loss of direction, loss of certainty. Yet within that very emptiness lies the space where faith is born in its purest form. Because faith is not built when everything is going well. It is built when nothing else is left to hold on to. In moments of complete helplessness, the illusion of self-sufficiency is shattered. A person realizes that their strength, intelligence, and planning were never truly independent forces. They were always limited. And this realization, though painful, is liberating. It strips away arrogance, false confidence, and reliance on temporary things. It redirects the heart towards something eternal, something unchanging. When all worldly support systems fail, the heart begins to search for a support that cannot fail. This is where faith rises not as a concept, but as a necessity. There is a unique sincerity that emerges when hope in everything else disappears. In times of comfort, faith can sometimes be routine, even passive. Prayers are performed, words are spoken, but the heart may not always be fully Arabic, Arabic alif, Arabic grada, Arabic rat. However, when a person reaches a point where nothing else can help them, their connection transforms. Their Arabic dala, Arabic hin, Arabic alif is no longer just words, it becomes a desperate call. Their Arabic sin, Arabic jim, Arabic kwaw, Arabic dala is no longer just a position. It becomes a place of refuge. Their remembrance is no longer habitual, it becomes survival. This sincerity is powerful because it comes from a place of truth. There is no pretending, no distraction, no divided attention. It is just the servant and their creator. Oh, boom. This is why despair, though it feels heavy, can actually be the beginning of something greater. It pushes a person to confront reality, to question their attachments, and to rediscover their purpose. It forces them to turn inward and upward at the same time. And in doing so, they begin to see things differently. What once seemed like the end of everything starts to look like the beginning of something deeper. They start to understand that losing hope in creation is not the same as losing hope altogether. In fact, it is often the first step toward placing hope where it truly belongs. Faith that rises from hardship is stronger than faith that exists in ease. It is tested, refined, and proven. It does not depend on circumstances because it was born in the absence of favorable circumstances. A person who finds their way back in darkness carries a different kind of light. They know what it means to feel lost, and they know what it means to be guided. This kind of faith is not easily shaken because it is rooted in experience, not just knowledge. Over time, the person begins to see patterns. They realize that every moment of despair they went through had a purpose. Every closed door led them somewhere better. Every loss taught them something essential. And every tear brought them closer to a reality they previously ignored. This reflection strengthens their belief even further. They begin to trust not only in the outcome, but in the process itself. They understand that even when things do not make sense, there is wisdom behind them. When hope fades, it does not mean that everything is over. It means that something is being cleared away to make room for something more meaningful. It is a transition from relying on what is limited to relying on what is limitless. It is a shift from external dependence to internal strength. And most importantly, it is a return to a connection that was always there but perhaps neglected. Allah is closest when everyone else leaves. This truth becomes most evident in moments of loneliness and abandonment. Human relationships, no matter how strong they seem, are subject to change. People come and go, circumstances shift, and even the closest bonds can weaken under pressure. When someone experiences being left behind, ignored, or forgotten, it creates a deep sense of emptiness. It can feel as though the world has turned its back, leaving them to face their struggles alone. But within that loneliness lies a hidden reality, one that is often overlooked when life is filled with noise and company. The departure of people reveals the constant presence of Allah. Unlike human beings, Allah does not leave, does not forget, and does not turn away. His closeness is not dependent on circumstances or conditions. It is constant, unwavering, and deeply personal. But often this closeness is only truly felt when all other distractions are removed. When there is no one left to talk to, the heart begins to speak differently. When there is no one left to rely on, the soul begins to lean in a new direction. Loneliness, though painful, creates a space for connection that is undisturbed. Without the influence of others, without the noise of opinions and expectations, a person is left alone with their thoughts and their creator. This solitude can be transformative if embraced correctly. Instead of viewing it as emptiness, it can be seen as an opportunity to build a relationship that is not influenced by the Arabic Dilla, Arabic Noon, Arabic Yet, Arabic Alif, but focused entirely on the divine. In these moments, a person begins to notice things they never did before. They start to feel a sense of calm in their solitude. They find comfort in speaking to Allah, even without words. They begin to understand that being alone does not mean being abandoned. It means being given a chance to connect on a deeper level. This realization changes everything. It turns pain into peace, fear into trust, and isolation into intimacy. There is also a profound sense of being understood that comes with turning to Allah. Human beings, no matter how empathetic, can never fully comprehend what is inside another person's heart. There are thoughts that cannot be expressed, feelings that cannot be explained, and wounds that cannot be shown. But Allah knows all of it. He knows what is hidden, what is suppressed, and what is forgotten. This knowledge creates a unique comfort. A person no longer feels the need to explain themselves or justify their emotions. They are understood completely without judgment. As this connection strengthens, the absence of people begins to feel less significant. It no longer defines the person's sense of worth or belonging. They realize that their value does not come from being accepted by others, but from being known by Allah. This shift in perspective is powerful because it frees them from the need for validation. It allows them to stand firm even when they stand alone. Over time, the person begins to appreciate the moments when people left. They see them not as losses, but as redirection. They understand that certain relationships had to end so that their connection with Allah could grow. They recognize that being left alone was not a punishment, but a form of Arabikrat, Arabikit, Arabic meme, Arabic tettu marbuta. Mercy, it was a way of bringing them back, of removing distractions, and of guiding them towards something more lasting. This closeness also brings a sense of security that cannot be found elsewhere. When a person knows that Allah is with them, they no longer fear being alone. They no longer feel overwhelmed by uncertainty. They carry a quiet confidence, knowing that they are never truly by themselves. This confidence is not loud or arrogant. It is calm, steady, and deeply rooted. In the end, the departure of people reveals a truth that was always there, that the presence of Allah is enough. It is more than enough. And sometimes it takes losing everything else to truly understand that. Despair is a sign to reconnect with your Creator. It is not merely an emotional state, but a spiritual signal. A quiet yet powerful indication that something within has become disconnected. When a person feels overwhelmed by hopelessness, it often means they have reached the limits of their reliance on the world. They have tried to fix things through their own strength, leaned on people who could not carry their weight, and placed expectations on outcomes that did not unfold as planned. This accumulation of disappointment eventually settles into despair. But instead of viewing this state as the end, it can be understood as an invitation to turn back, to realign, and to reconnect with the one who was always there. Despair has a way of stripping away illusions. It removes a false sense of control that people often carry. It exposes how fragile worldly attachments can be and how quickly they can disappear. In doing so, it creates a void. And that void is not meant to remain empty. It is meant to be filled with something greater, something more stable, something that does not break under pressure. That is something is the connection with Allah. When everything else fails, the heart begins to search for a source that cannot fail. This search, if guided correctly, leads directly back to the Creator. There is a misconception that despair is purely negative, something to be avoided at all costs. While prolonged despair without direction can indeed be harmful, the initial feeling of being lost can actually be beneficial if it pushes a person toward reflection. It forces them to pause, to question their path, and to evaluate what they have been relying on. In this pause, there is an opportunity to rate the heart. Instead of sinking deeper into hopelessness, a person can choose to interpret their state as a message that they have been disconnected for too long, and it is time to return. This return is not about perfection. It is not about suddenly becoming flawless or having everything figured out. It is about sincerity. It is about turning back with honesty, acknowledging weakness, and seeking help from the one who has the power to restore. When a person reconnects with Allah in their state of despair, their relationship becomes real. It is no longer based on routine or habit, but on need and truth. They begin to speak from the heart, to ask with humility, and to seek with genuine intention. Despair also teaches a person the importance of where they place their hope. When hope is placed entirely in people or outcomes, it becomes fragile. It rises and falls depending on circumstances. But when hope is placed in Allah, it becomes Arabic fair. Arabic Khalif, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Ba. Even if the situation does not change immediately, the person's perspective begins to shift. They find strength in knowing that their Arabic de la Arabic Tana Arabic Khalif is heard, that their struggle is seen, and that their patience is valued. This awareness transforms despair into something more manageable, something that no longer controls them but instead guides them. Over time, the person begins to see despair differently. They no longer fear it as they once did. They recognize it as a turning point, a moment that has the potential to lead them back to what truly matters. They understand that every time they feel lost, it is an opportunity to be found again. And with each return, their connection grows stronger. They become more aware, more grounded, and more connected than before. Your lowest point can be your turning point. This is a truth that becomes clear only after one has lived through moments of deep struggle. The lowest point in a person's life is often marked by a sense of complete defeat. It is when everything seems to fall apart at once, dreams collapse, relationships break, and an inner strength feels depleted. It is a place where a person may feel as though there is no way forward, no clear direction, and no remaining options. But within this very point lies a hidden potential, one that can redefine the entire course of a person's life. At the lowest point, there is nothing left to lose. This may sound frightening, but it also carries a unique freedom. When a person is no longer holding on to expectations or trying to maintain a certain image, they are free to rebuild from the ground up. They are no longer restricted by fear of failure because in their mind they have already reached the bottom. This freedom allows them to make changes they would not have considered before. It allows them to take steps toward growth without the weight of external pressure. This is also the point where clarity begins to emerge. When life is going well, it is easy to overlook certain truths. Distractions are abundant, and there is little motivation to question the status quo. But in moments of hardship, everything becomes more apparent. A person begins to see what truly matters and what does not. They recognize which relationships were genuine and which were conditional. They understand which paths were leading them forward and which were holding them back. This clarity is invaluable because it provides a foundation for meaningful change. The turning point begins when a person decides that they will not remain in that low state. It is a decision, often quiet and internal, but incredibly powerful. It is the moment they choose to rise, even if they do not yet know how. It is the moment they decide to seek help, to make an effort, and to believe that change is possible. This decision, though small in appearance, marks the beginning of transformation. Turning points are not always dramatic. They do not always come with sudden breakthroughs or instant success. Often, they begin with small, consistent action. A person may start by reconnecting with prayer, by seeking knowledge, or by making a conscious effort to improve their mindset. These actions, though simple, begin to create momentum. And over time, this momentum leads to significant change. There is also a deep sense of resilience that is developed at the lowest point. When a person has experienced the depth of struggle, they gain a strength that cannot be taught. They learn how to endure, how to adapt, and how to keep moving forward despite uncertainty. This resilience becomes a part of them, shaping how they approach future challenges. They are no longer easily shaken, because they have already faced what they once thought was unbearable. Another important aspect of the turning point is the shift in perspective. B. Instead of viewing their lowest moment as a failure, the person begins to see it as a lesson. They understand that it was necessary for their growth. They recognize that it taught them things they could not have learned otherwise. This shift changes how they relate to their past. Instead of carrying it as a burden, they carry it as a source of strength. As they move forward, the person begins to rebuild their life with intention. They make choices that align with their values, they set goals that are meaningful, and they prioritize what truly matters. This new approach is often more grounded and more sustainable because it is built on experience rather than assumption. They are no longer chasing temporary satisfaction but seeking lasting fulfillment. In time, they may look back at their lowest point and realize that it was not the end they feared, but the beginning they needed. It was the moment that forced them to change, to grow, and to reconnect with what truly matters. It was the point where everything shifted, where they moved from being lost to being guided, from being broken to being rebuilt, and from being uncertain to being purposeful.